The rain in the Pacific Northwest doesn't just fall. It swallows. It washes away footprints, chills the bones, and hides the sins of men who move like shadows in the night. On a desolate stretch of highway in 1984, a silver-tongued predator believed he had mastered the art of the vanish. He was meticulous. He was invisible. He was a ghost with a high IQ and a collection of trophies that no one was supposed to find. But even the most brilliant monsters have a pulse, and a pulse can falter. Imagine a man who spent years studying the police, learning how to scrub a crime scene of every hair, every fiber, and every fingerprint. He was the perfect hunter. Yet, on a cold Tuesday night, a single, microscopic lapse in judgment, a fleeting moment of arrogance, turned a masterfully executed crime into a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to his front door. He thought he was playing God, but he forgot that even gods can bleed if they trip over their own pride. This is not just a story of murder. It is a psychological descent into the mind of a man who thought he was too smart to be caught, only to be betrayed by a piece of paper no larger than a postage stamp. The early 1980s were a time of transition for the United States, but for the residents of the I-5 corridor, it was a season of terror. The atmosphere was thick with paranoia. Young women were disappearing from bus stops, parking lots, and shopping malls with a frequency that defied logic. The police were chasing shadows, hampered by the lack of DNA technology and a killer who seemed to understand police procedure better than the detectives themselves. Our setting is a town where everyone locks their doors, but no one knows who they are locking them against. The victims shared a pattern. They were vibrant, independent, and usually in the wrong place at the wrong time. But our antagonist, whom we shall call the architect, didn't fit the profile of a raging lunatic. He was a neighbor, a worker, a man with a smile that reached his eyes, but never his soul. He lived a double life, meticulously maintaining a facade of normalcy while scouting his next canvas for horror. He spent his weekends scouting locations, measuring the time it took for police patrols to pass, and recording the habits of those he deemed targets. He wasn't looking for a victim. He was looking for a performance. He had a basement that was soundproofed not with expensive foam, but with layers of old newspapers and industrial plastic, a DIY chamber of horrors that looked like a simple storage room to the untrained eye. The architect was a man of routines. He woke up at 6 a.m., drank his coffee black, and worked as a high-level logistics manager for a regional shipping company. This job was the perfect cover. It gave him access to maps, delivery schedules, and remote warehouses that no one ever visited. He knew which roads were unmonitored and which bridges had blind spots. To his colleagues, he was Robert, the reliable guy who never took a sick day. To the women he hunted, he was the last thing they would ever see. His methodology was born from a deep-seated hatred hidden behind a mask of extreme politeness. He didn't just want to kill. He wanted to own. He viewed his victims as statistics in a grand experiment of control. He would watch a target for weeks, learning their favorite coffee shop, the time they left for work, and even the names of their pets. He wanted to know them better than they knew themselves before he struck. This level of obsession is what made him so dangerous and so successful for nearly a decade. The night of the final disappearance began with an eerie stillness. Sarah, a 22-year-old nursing student, was walking to her car after a late shift. The parking lot was a graveyard of cold steel and flickering orange streetlights. She felt it before she saw it, the shift in the atmospheric pressure, a sudden presence. The architect didn't rush her. He didn't use a mask or a weapon initially. He used the approach of the helpful stranger. He stood by his vehicle with the hood up, looking distressed. "Excuse me," he said, his voice a perfect blend of vulnerability and politeness. "My battery is dead, and I really need to get home to my daughter. Could you just help me hold this flashlight?" It was a trap built on empathy. As Sarah reached for the light, the mask slipped. In one fluid practice motion, he overpowered her. There was no scream. He had studied the exact pressure points to silence a human being in seconds. He drove her to a pre-selected kill site, a cabin hidden so deep in the woods that the silence felt heavy. Inside, the environment was clinical. He treated his crimes like surgeries. He wore surgical gloves, a plastic apron, and even hairnets to ensure no biological trace was left behind. He believed he was a ghost. For hours, he toyed with the concept of power, believing he was the only witness to his own dark genius. When it was over, he cleaned the room with bleach, burned her belongings in a high-temperature incinerator, and prepared to dump the body in a river miles away. He sat in his car for a moment, breathing in the cold night air, feeling a sense of absolute triumph. He had done it again. Another perfect disappearance. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusted his glasses, and smoothed his hair. He was the invisible man. He began the long drive back to the city, navigating the winding mountain roads with the confidence of a man who owned the terrain. He even hummed a soft tune, a classical melody that contrasted sharply with the darkness of the cargo he carried in the trunk. But fate has a wicked sense of irony. Just as he reached the outskirts of the county line, he saw the one thing he hadn't accounted for: a temporary sobriety checkpoint. Normally, he would have known about this, but a local construction project had diverted traffic, forcing the police to set up in a location he hadn't scouted. His heart didn't race. He was too disciplined for that. He slowed down, rolled down his window, and offered the officer a tired professional smile. "Late night at the office, officer?" he asked. The officer, a young man named Miller, nodded. "Just routine, sir. Can I see your license and registration?" The architect handed them over. Everything was in order. He was a model citizen. But as Miller handed the documents back, he dropped his flashlight. It rolled under the driver's side door. The architect, ever the helpful stranger, opened his door to retrieve it for the officer. As he leaned out, a small crumpled piece of yellow paper fell from his pocket onto the asphalt. He didn't notice it. He handed the flashlight back, Miller thanked him, and the architect drove away, convinced he had just talked his way out of a potential disaster. But Officer Miller was observant. He picked up the yellow slip of paper. It was a dry cleaning receipt from a shop 3 towns over. What struck Miller as odd wasn't the receipt itself, but the date and time stamped on it. It was from 4 hours ago, at a time when the man claimed he was at his office in the city, 60 miles in the opposite direction. Why would a man lie about something so trivial? Miller didn't report it immediately, but he tucked the receipt into his pocket. The next morning, when the news broke about Sarah's disappearance from the nursing school parking lot, which was located right next to that very dry cleaning shop, the pieces began to click into place with a terrifying snap. The investigation that followed was a masterclass in forensic persistence. Detectives began pulling the thread of that one receipt. They found that the dry cleaner was located directly across the street from where the first victim had disappeared 3 years prior. The ghost finally had a name: Robert Vane. When police started digging into Robert Vane's history, they found a void. He had no criminal record, no speeding tickets, nothing. He was a man who existed on paper but left no wake in the water. But the receipt gave them a legal foothold. They obtained a warrant for his phone records and credit card statements. They discovered that every time a woman went missing, Vane had purchased gasoline or supplies in the immediate vicinity. He was careful to pay in cash, but he couldn't hide the location pings from the few digital systems that existed at the time. The detectives decided to play a game of cat and mouse. They didn't arrest him immediately. They wanted to see where he would lead them. They put a surveillance team on him 24/7. Vane, sensing the heat, became even more calculated. He stopped his hunting trips and focused on being the perfect citizen. He went to church, he volunteered at a local shelter, and he even visited the police station to check on the progress of the missing girls' cases, offering his help as a concerned member of the community. This was his greatest mistake, his arrogance. He wanted to see the detectives' faces. He wanted to feel superior to them. During one of these visits, Detective Harris noticed something. Vane was wearing a very specific type of outdoor boot, a brand used primarily by professional hunters and surveyors. Harris remembered a muddy footprint found near a shallow grave 2 years earlier. The tread pattern was unique, a limited edition that had been discontinued. The pressure mounted. The forensic team went back to Sarah's last known location. They searched the parking lot with a fine-tooth comb. They found a tiny shard of glass near where her car had been parked. It didn't match her vehicle. It was a specialized lens from a high-end European fog light. When the police checked Vane's vehicle history, they found he had owned a car with those exact lights, but he had traded it in just 2 days after Sarah went missing. They tracked the car down to a scrapyard. It had already been partially dismantled, but the fog light housing was still there. One lens was cracked. The shard from the parking lot fit the crack like a missing puzzle piece. The invisible man was starting to become very visible. When they finally raided his home, they didn't find blood or weapons, at least, not at first. They found a sanctuary of order. His house was spotless. But in the basement, behind a false wall in his library, they found his archive. It was a collection of high-resolution photographs, maps, and journals. Hidden behind a false wall in his library was a flight map of the local wilderness. It was dotted with small hand-drawn X marks. Each X represented a woman. Each X represented a life extinguished by a man who thought he was a genius. The most chilling part? He had kept a diary, written in a complex code he thought was unbreakable. It took cryptographers months to realize he was using a 14th century cipher. When cracked, the diary revealed a man who viewed humans as nothing more than prey for his weekend hunting trips. He didn't just kill. He hunted them in the woods with a rifle, giving them a head start just to feel the rush. He wrote about the purity of the chase and how the world was divided into wolves and sheep. He genuinely believed he was doing the world a favor by harvesting the weak. The trial was a media circus that gripped the nation. The architect sat in the courtroom, cold and detached, still believing he was the smartest person in the room. He laughed when prosecutors struggled to find the bodies, knowing the wilderness would keep his secrets. He mocked the victims' families with subtle smirks and stayed silent during cross-examination. But then, the forensic team produced the golden evidence. Using a new, experimental technique for 1984, they found a microscopic trace of the nursing student's perfume inside the fibers of his car's upholstery trapped beneath the very seat he had meticulously cleaned with bleach. The scent of midnight jasmine became his executioner. The jury took only 3 hours to return a verdict of guilty on all counts. The aftermath of the trial left the community scarred. The X marks on his map led to the recovery of 12 bodies. But there were over 20 marks that led to nothing but empty earth. Vane refused to tell them where the others were buried. He took those secrets to his grave, dying in prison decades later from natural causes. He remained unrepentant until his final breath, allegedly telling a guard, "I only got caught because I tried to be nice." He never understood that it wasn't his niceness that failed him. It was the simple fact that no matter how much you scrub, the truth has a way of clinging to the bottom of your shoe. Today, the I-5 corridor is safer, but the shadow of the architect still lingers in the minds of those who lived through that era. It changed the way people looked at their neighbors. It ended the age of innocence where people felt safe helping a stranger on the side of the road. The case of the architect serves as a haunting reminder that no matter how much you plan, no matter how perfect you think your strategy is, the human element, the ego, is the ultimate flaw. He was undone not by a high-tech task force, but by a piece of trash and a scent of flowers. The question remains, how many more architects are out there? How many people are living double lives, blending into the background of our daily routines, waiting for their own midnight jasmine moment? We like to think we can spot a monster, that they look different or act strange. But the most terrifying monsters are the ones who look exactly like us. They are the ones who hold the door open, who offer a jump start to your car, and who smile at you in the grocery store. They are the masters of the one mistake, and usually that mistake hasn't happened yet. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the darkness with dark case files. This story is a testament to the fact that even the most meticulous evil can be undone by the smallest detail. If this journey into the mind of a predator moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to keep bringing these hidden histories to light. We are dedicated to uncovering the truth, one case at a time, and we want you with us on every step of this journey. What do you think was the true downfall of the architect? Was it the receipt, the fog light, or was it his own overconfidence that truly killed him? Do you believe there are more victims out there that we will never find? Let us know your theories in the comments below. We read every single one. Until next time, stay vigilant, Stay curious and keep your eyes open because the truth is often hidden in the smallest, most mundane details of our lives. This is Dark Case Files signing off. Don't forget to subscribe for more true crime deep dives.